One. Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Deal Scout. On today's show, we're going to talk about investing in college startups using crowdfunding. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Josh. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Hey, so the first time we chatted, you were in Israel at the time working on some of this project. Where in the world are you located now?
Right now, I'm in New York. I just came up for the week. I have a few meetings. I don't know. I'm working closely with a few NYU startups. So, right now I'm in New York. I'm headed back to South Florida soon. I kind of bounce around New York and South Florida. I was in Israel for a little bit. They have a great startup scene. But for now, I'm going to be between Miami and New York.
Very cool. All right, so Jonathan, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're working on?
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Equity Portal. Equity Portal is an equity crowdfunding site that raises capital for college startups. So a lot of these schools have programs to help their startups raise capital and kind of get them off the ground, but they do a really bad job at actually supporting these companies. Most of the startups fail, and the startups that are successful from college typically don't even go through the accelerator or bootcamp route. Um, these colleges also have to build their own networks of investors, and there's no centralized system for college startups to be able to get investment from anyone. So that's kind of where I see myself coming. I make it easy for anyone to invest in college startups.
Hmm. So I love where we're going this. Tell us, why did you pick crowdfunding as a business that you wanted to build for yourself? And then also, why did you discover the niche of I want to invest in college startups rather than a brick and mortar down the road or Mainvest or the Republic going after big tech? Like, how did you choose that niche within it?
Yeah, so crowdfunding is just, I guess it's like a catch-all term, but it's one of these new investment methods that's, we've come up with that kind of decentralizes investments. So typically in the past, if you were a company and you wanted to raise capital, you'd go to accredited investors and institutional investors, VC funds. The beauty of crowdfunding is anyone can invest. So I was working at a small PE shop in New York City, and they had some really great deals. And I'm like, why can't I invest in the deals that you guys have? I wasn't accredited, so I wasn't able to find the deals. I kind of jumped down the rabbit hole at that point, and I started looking for a way to make deals like this, private deals, accessible to the public, and that's what crowdfunding does. So through crowdfunding, it's actually a FINRA and SEC. It's a long process to become a crowdfunding portal, but through crowdfunding, anyone can invest, not just accredited investors.
Hmm.
And with regards to college startups, it's kind of like the Amazon approach, I guess. So there's 1,000 different flavors of college startups, right? There's a wide breadth of them, and there's college students in the past have shown a great ability to come up with the next big thing. They have radical ideas, and they've shown the capacity to change the world. Um, so I figured what a great opportunity. These startups need money. They're looking for funding, and we have a way to do it that's new, unique, and it's like having their pitch deck open to the world instead of just the people that usually be um, able to contact, like the VC's mom and dad.
Yeah. What I like about the niche that you chose working with college startups, for crowdfunding to work, you need a crowd, right? And I think with colleges, you have alumni that you can go, say, hey, here's what we're working on, and people will tend to invest because of being an alumni. But there's also like college people are typically better at like social media and audience building and TikTok and all these other things. Like, what other advantages do you think college students would have versus, a 40-year-old guy like me if I were to do crowdfunding?
Yeah. So they're it's a time in their life where they could take big risks.
Mm.
Right. So if you're a father of three, in all likeliness, if your company is not doing well off the start, you might have to reconsider and get a 9 to 5. Get a regular job that could pay the bills. When you're young, you could take big risks. Um, Also, I think it really depends on where the the college is located, but schools like NYU and Columbia and Boston area schools like Harvard and MIT, there's a lot of investors there that specifically look for new and interesting ideas. And universities are the engine of our economy in the States. So, engine of innovation too.
Hmm.
So, college startups have the support from the alumni, the professors. Everyone wants to help a college student, right? So you ask for help and nobody will ever say no, usually, from what I've seen. But you ask for advice, sometimes you get money, you ask for money, you get nothing.
Yeah.
Um, the beauty of being a college kid is people are willing to help you. And my first raise, we're going to be launching soon, is with an NYU Gallatin graduate student. She's a superstar. Her name is Samara Amani, and she's kind of like the social media firebrand. I compare her to AOC, but she's not like AOC in that respect. But she's really social media savvy. She has hundreds of thousands of followers, um, and she has this entire community around her, including NYU and the Fulbright community. And college is a great place to network. So it's a great place to find really skilled co-founders as well.
Yeah.
And the
Nice.
colleges want to see you succeed. It's in their best interest that their startups do well.
Yeah, it's in a way it's in their best interest. It's selfish, but they need you to succeed because the better you succeed, the better they get, future grants, alumni donations, philanthropic things, but they could also go, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg, graduated from our school, right? So it gets, all sorts of attention. So this
Yeah.
is really smart, Jonathan. Um, so you said you were working at a PE fund, a private equity fund. What was your role there at the PE fund?
I was an analyst. I was just kind of building databases and reaching out to business owners and, just the muddy stuff, going through financials and kind of, mapping them out. But this, I'm a startup myself. It's a completely different ballgame, right? A lot less, um, a lot more actually doing things that push the company forward, not so much, modeling out hypothetical financials for a company that we may or may not acquire.
Yeah. What's so talk to me about the differences you felt that maybe surprised you working in a PE fund versus building your own startup.
Um, it just you have to build everything from the ground up. You wear 1,000 hats. You're not looking at Excel all day. You never really look at Excel ever. Modeling out financials is pointless from what I've seen. Unless you're generating revenue and you're burning cash. Um, but when you're trying to get something started off the ground, it's really just pushing as hard as you can. And it feels the only way things get moving is from you, right? So I'm not looking to acquire companies through my portal. I'm just looking to list them and help them raise capital. Where like working as an employee at a PE fund, you have a boss and you have long hours and you're on Excel all day and you sit in a chair and it's not such a people involved business. At least what I was doing, I'm sure higher up, it's a lot of personal relationships, but um, right now, from what I've seen, the amount of networking that it actually takes to get something like this off the ground is a lot more than working a 9 to 5.
Yeah. Yeah. An entrepreneur is the only person in the world who would, work from 5 in the morning to 9 at night to avoid working a 9 to 5, right? Like you're consistently working, thinking, planning, meeting, right? So let me ask you this question. When building your business, what do you think is your superpower while building this crowdfunding? Like what are you exploring about yourself that, like you're like, wow, I'm actually good at this. Never would have thought that.
Yeah, so I don't know, it's been like a bootstrap process the entire time. So I've learned a lot of computer coding and HTML stuff and also some backend stuff. But I'm also I feel like I could go to law school right now and I'd be fine and with absolutely minimal effort. It's more the attention to detail. I think it's really important when you're building something on the internet that it has to look good and appealing and it has to be user friendly. And I'd never thought of anything like that before. I'd always been like a math guy,
Yeah.
and this is like really muddy, just relationship based, nothing to do with math whatsoever. So it's a different side of the brain.
Did you have any idea how much legal work they would need to
Zero.
be
Mm,
to build a crowdfunding platform? Give us an
zero.
idea for people out there who are like, "Hey, I want to build a crowdfunding platform." Give us an idea of what it
Don't
takes.
do it. Don't do it. Build some traction first, right? So kind of facilitate deals privately before you go ahead and build this crowdfunding platform. Or if you raise a few $1 million, I guess that could do it. But it's a really long process. It takes 6 to 9 months. You have to be an accredited crowdfunding portal by the SEC, and in order to do that, you have to go through this FINRA membership program. It's a new members application with FINRA, and that takes a really long time. And it's a lot of nitty gritty, and there's a lot of legal stuff and a lot of structural stuff, and you go back and forth and back and forth, and it takes forever. It's exhausting. And when I was working on the FINRA application, that was the only thing that was on my mind. Of course, if you have money and resources to do it, it could be a lot easier, but I was bootstrapping it. So I'm probably the youngest and the poorest person to ever go through one of these FINRA application processes. And it's grueling, and it takes a lot of time, and you have to be patient, and it takes months upon months upon months. And it's really, they don't make it easy, but it's good because not anyone could raise. It's all about protecting the investor. So at the end of the day, it kind of weeds out those people that aren't super serious about this. But I think that if you are interested in starting an equity crowdfunding platform, take a step back, pick a niche to start off with, and try to facilitate deals within that niche before you go ahead and jump into actually making an equity crowdfunding platform.
Yeah. How much would you say financially it took to get to where, even before launch, even before making a dollar, like what kind of investment is it to build a equity crowdfunding platform?
So when I started off almost 2 years ago now, there was no white label solutions. Now you see some white label solutions. So you could do it, probably for around 50K. But it's also a time commitment. So, you have to take a year out of your calendar at least that you're not going to be doing anything, right? You're not going to have any companies in your platform. 6 to 9 months for the legal, and then you're setting everything up in terms of the back end. So I'd say like very, very, the cheapest side of the spectrum, it's going to be around 50K.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
So you said you bootstrapped that, to where you got to now. Walk us through how you did that, right? By bootstrapping and creative, talk to us about, early team, outside, support. Like, how did you do this?
Yeah. So I had a I was walking, I'll just start from the beginning, but I was walking down Avenue B in New York City. I lived on Avenue C, and I was just walking back home, and I saw a restaurant. The restaurant was empty. And I'm like, who is invested in that restaurant? I feel bad, they have money, and I'd never invest in a restaurant like that, but I'd love to invest in other types of businesses. So that was kind of my aha moment. And I came back home and I told my roommate at the time, who was actually an early co-founder, listen, listen to my idea. What if we do this? We have these private deals for everyone. Like, I love it. And then, I saw another friend, and I kind of told her my idea. And she said, my cousin works at a company called Republic, and they do the same type of thing. Like, what's equity crowdfunding? What's Republic? At the time, Republic had 40 employees. Now, they're huge. So I went to go meet with this guy from Republic, and he kind of pointed me in the right direction, told me a little bit about equity crowdfunding. I had no idea. I didn't even know that there was a legal framework that existed. So it was really starting from not knowing anything. And I met with him, and, it took us a while. We had no idea what we were doing, right? So we built up the site. We didn't even know how to apply it to FINRA. But, I ended up hiring a consultant. And in the beginning, we had like 15 computer science interns from graduate NYU. None of them had any idea what they're doing. They didn't know how to build a website. They hadn't worked on any applications, no projects. But, we kind of used the template that we found online to build our site. We're like, okay, perfect. Everything's ready to go. We did that in a couple of weeks. We had no idea what was coming, right? So we spoke to a few more people. We kept on bothering this guy from Republic. He's like, you have to apply to FINRA. What does that even mean? So we hired a consultant. And then in terms of legal, I was doing pretty much all the legal stuff. And then we were passing it to some accident attorney who was reviewing it. He was cheap. He was $150 an hour. So, that's the way we did it. But we managed to go through the entire FINRA process. It took us a long time. And then by the time we were done, in the beginning, we had a really unsexy niche. We wanted to do non-cyclical businesses, which was what I'd been doing at the PE fund. So think about like pest control, landscaping, plumbing. Um, by the time we'd finished the FINRA process, my co-founder and I at the time began to butt heads. I wanted to take it in a sexier direction, something a little bit more appealing, and he was really dead set on continuing to do these non-cyclical companies, which is, in theory, it's a great idea, but we just weren't building the type of traction that we wanted to see. So I was ready to pivot, and he was a COO, but he was basically a co-CEO, right? Because we had equal power, basically.
Hmm.
And just after, butting heads, we decided, hey, listen, it's, we can't be fighting. We're best friends. It'd probably just be better if, you step aside. And I continue to work on this with my vision, and, so we don't have any bad blood, because we're both pulling. It was like a game of tug of war. And nothing was really getting done because, instead of having one vision, we had two completely opposing visions, and one person can't be reaching out to college startups and universities, and the other person reaching out to, business brokers, and it was just very conflicting ideas. But he left. It's amicable. I just saw him a couple of days ago. We're still friends, but we, a lot of tough conversations, a lot of bad blood. We didn't speak for a couple months, but everything's good now.
Yeah. So how do you go about divorcing a co-founder, right? Like that process, because you both put blood, sweat, tears, resources into, whatever level. Like, how do you go about doing that? That's tough.
It it like just kind of happened naturally. We were fighting a lot. We were again pulling in the wrong direction. So we had a lot of difficult conversations. At a certain point, he wasn't like responding to my calls.
Yeah. Uh-oh. I think you
Really
went
tough.
you went mute for a second.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, sorry, I just lost you for a sec.
Yeah. So at a certain point, we like weren't on talking terms.
All right, Jonathan, I'm losing you. You're going in and out. Check, check. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Better.
Yeah, you just disappeared for a second. I saw
Oh,
your mouth
sorry.
moving.
Um, so how do you go about divorcing a co-founder?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, it is kind of like a divorce. Um, but we had a difficult conversation. We were at a certain point where we weren't really talking to each other, and we were fighting in different directions. So we had a tough conversation. We decided both together, like, listen, you're not committed. We need to be on the same page with out. He's like, listen, like I think it's better if we part ways, and we had that conversation, and it was really tough. There was definitely some hostility there for a little bit, but at the end of the day, everyone's human, and they're your friends, and they try to do it with you. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But they put in effort, so you got to appreciate what they put in, and at least they try to make it work. Even though not everyone sees eye to eye all the time.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's really important. By the way, for a startup, is to have one central vision that you both are working towards. Um, Instead of having doesn't matter how many co-founders you are, but there's one person actually calling the shots, and then the rest of the people are challenging him on those ideas, but they're working towards that one mission instead of diverting off path.
Yeah. When there's two visions or multiple visions, what it causes is division, right? Um, what advice do you have for other founders? Because you're going to be, running crowdfunding for college students, maybe first time founders, and you get to share some of the things that you've learned along the way, like with creating a team, right? So, what advice would you have about partnerships or about co-founders?
Um, so it's really important to have somebody with different skill sets than you. So that was one of the main problems my co-founder and I had, is we were the same on paper, right? And in real life, we had some different skills, but a lot of our skills overlapped. So there was no clear distinction between what I was doing and what he was doing. So make sure it's somebody, if you're looking for a co-founder, make sure it's somebody that complements you in their, um, I guess their field or whatever they're in charge of is very clearly drawn out and separate from yours. So there's no overlap there. So if you're not a technical guy, let him handle all the technical stuff. Trust him, but again, try to keep a clear line between what you're focused on doing and what he's focused on doing, and figure out how you want to structure your company in terms of responsibilities early. Things can change, but I think in the beginning, or after a little bit of research and kind of understanding what it's going to take to get this off the ground, you'll get a better idea as to what you actually need to, what divisions you need in your company to make it most efficient. So have those clearly drawn out, and give one responsibility to one person and then another to another. But no conflicting responsibilities. It's just a problem.
Yep, absolutely. So as you're going along, what do you think the future of this looks like for you?
For equity portal,
Yeah.
I want to be in every university in the States. So I want to raise, my dream is to have every college startup in the country on here. We want to have the next Facebook on here. We want to say that, in 5 years that the next big thing was first funded on equity portal. So Facebook, their first round of funding was $500,000. I know it's not a tiny amount, but it's a very crowdfundable number. That $500,000 is now worth over 10 billion. So, I'm not saying that we're gonna be able to facilitate investment into a company like that, but I think eventually that's our goal, is to expand out nationally and really be the centralized platform for college investing. And then after that, we'll see. But right now, we're starting small with NYU, and then we're going on to Columbia. We have a couple of startups there. We're building our investor networks at each school, and also through other intersections. I guess that's a big thing we look at. But really just, growing the college startup ecosystem and making investments in college startups easier.
Nice. What do you think the future of university will even look like?
Like a school.
Yeah, so
So
I think
if
in 2020 we saw a major shift in how schools are operating, right? Because a lot of them had to go virtual overnight, and then they open, they close, they open, they close. Like, do you think that what do you think that the future looks like, and how do you plan on leveraging that with what you're building?
um, I think schools are definitely going to go back to in person, or they're going to try to. Um, but universities are way too expensive to begin with. Um, I'm not sure what is it like, all costs included, like around $50,000 a year to go to university here in the States,
Hmm.
which is crazy. Um, I don't, we've seen that everyone's taking classes online, and they've done it for the last couple of years. But if you look at any of the studies, online learning isn't not a substitute to in-person learning. So I think that people will be back in class. Um, in terms of how that's going to complement me, having people on reaching out to the students at the startup labs and being able to meet with the school heads in person, is much better. Having like a personal connection than meeting somebody over Zoom or Skype, at least in my eyes. So when people go back to school, I think that it's gonna there's just the biggest reason for university is you don't really learn so much unless you're like a really dedicated student, but the network you build is incredible. So being able to have those in-person conversations and networking is what I really think that schools are going to have to go back to, or nobody's going to end up going to college. It's just too expensive. You can't justify it.
Yeah. So do you think that college, students are looking at their the future careers, and is entrepreneurship becoming more, in your opinion, right? I went to school 20 years ago, right? Like, do you think that more and more people are exploring startups and entrepreneurship as a way to create their own path in the future?
For sure.
Yeah.
So, you see these startup programs popping up at most universities in the States. The schools are realizing that the 9 to 5 is not going to work for everyone. So they want to support their students in their own ventures. it's a huge risk not to get a 9 to 5 corporate job. A lot of the kids that went to NYU are making really good money at these top banks, but I think that the world is kind of moving we're taking a step back. Everything's become so consolidated, and people are more interested in pursuing their own interests. Um, and for sure, why most, I think, why would you work for somebody else if you could work for yourself and do something you really like? So people want to support that, and there's typically more money in it too. So being an entrepreneur, it has lower lows and also higher highs.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. So, as you're building, what were some of the highs for you? Because you've been building this for a few years and you're just about to launch the first business on it. So, like, you've put in time, energy, effort, resources to get to where it is. So give us some highs.
Um, Highs. Getting that FINRA accreditation letter, right, was probably the biggest high. Um, yeah, that's it. And getting our first company, the first right company on our platform, the first right founder, was
Mm.
also a pretty big deal. So I've been reaching out to people for a while, and nobody seemed to be exactly what I was looking for my first launch. I wanted a superstar.
You wanted the first one to be the best one, right?
I
Like,
wanted the first one to be a great one. I'm not sure if it's going to be the best one, but great for sure.
got it.
And she's an all-star. She's a superstar. And it was we're talking just because she found me through a few NYU connections, and I'm like, okay, EdTech in Indonesia, it's a huge opportunity, a huge country, and it sounds like they really need it. But who are you? Why? How are you going to make this work? And while we were talking, I kind of Googled her name, and she has a Wikipedia page, and like all these cool things about her came up. I'm like, oh my God, you're the one. So that was like a big like. I think I started dancing after our first call, but
Nice.
that was another big moment.
So maybe like year one, right? So we got the first one. The first launch is coming soon. Um, how many college companies do you think you're going to get by year one? What's your goal?
I don't know. I want to do 10 in the first 6 months. We'll see.
Okay. What kind of raise do you think you're going to go for each of those?
So crowdfunding is done in tiers.
Okay.
Um, so the first raise is up to 107,000. So that's the maximum you can raise, but you can have a goal smaller than that. But you could still raise up to 107,000. So the thing with the goal is if you don't hit the goal, all the money gets returned to the investors. So our first launch, our goal.
Can't hear you, buddy. Hold on one second.
Sorry, you can't
Yeah.
hear me?
Yeah, it just every once in a while it mutes, so I don't know if a call's coming in or something.
No, no, no. No calls. I'm on my
Okay.
computer.
Got it. Well,
Yeah.
I got you now. Go ahead.
So again, the first tier is 107,000, but uh, you could raise up to 107,000. But you also have a funding goal. If you don't meet the funding goal, then the money is returned to the investor. Um, so our first funding goal is $5,000. I don't think we're going to have a problem raising it. But again, if we raise the $5,000, all the money gets returned to the investors. If we do raise the 107, right, which is the maximum, I think that justifies a higher raise. So we could raise after that up to $5 million. But again, it's in steps. So it really depends. We're kind of getting demand with this lower tiered raise first, and based on how well the company does in the raise, raising 5 million is, it's all you have to do is file a new amendment, and that's it. And it doesn't take very long.
Okay. So talk to us about some of the mechanics in a crowd fund, right? So let's go tier one, right? They're just getting started, got an idea, want to build something. I could raise up to 107K. Give us the ideas about how to, work with the crowdfunding. Like I'm the startup, explain it to me.
Yeah. So um, I think the majority of the people that I'm speaking to at least um, aren't incorporated, right? So that's the first steps: articles of incorporation, setting up a bank account, establishing your bylaws. Um, then it's pretty easy. And then the next step is creating your campaign page. So think about your campaign page like a pitch deck on the internet, right? So it's something beautiful and it's supposed to entice people to invest in you. So your campaign page has your problem, solution, founders, what have you, product, how you generate revenue. Um, and then after that, you start building something called the Form C. So the Form C is like it's the offering memorandum. It has everything that the investors need to know. It's kind of like a 10K or like a 1A. It's the offering. So you fill out your information uh, regarding how much you want to raise, a little bit of information about the company, about the founder, what types of shares you have, your financial statements, what risks are associated with investment in the security. So what are you actually investing in? Is it common stock? Is it preferred stock? Is it safe note? Is it a convertible debt instrument? So you pick all that out. And after you're done filling out the Form C, that takes about a week, I'd say. You file it with the SEC, and you can start raising capital.
Wow. Now, do you walk people through that process? Because I think myself included, like, how much do I give away? How much do I raise? What do I offer? Like, do you kind of guide them, or is there a
So
place to
at the end of
go?
the day, all of the decisions are made up to the founder,
Hmm.
but we'll kind of steer them in the right direction if they, again, it's all their own decisions. But if they come out with a crazy valuation, like a $30 million valuation with no history of operation and with absolutely nothing, we'll tell them, listen, this is insane. We're not going to raise capital for you at this valuation. Um, so we push them in the right direction, and we have, um, I'm not sure what it's called, but like a fill-in form, right? Where you kind of just enter your details when you're filling out the Form C, and it prompts you for the fields. And it generates like a V1 or a draft of the Form C, and that's just reviewed by a lawyer, and then everything's good. But yeah, we hold their hand through the entire process.
Got it. All right. So the whole process takes about how long? Let's just say I'm a college startup, want to go through the process. What should the expectation on that be?
It depends how much commitment you're putting into it, but maybe 10 hours.
Okay. And then how long before I get approved and I could run my first campaign?
Um, a few days. It's
Okay.
uh, it's depending on the SEC.
Okay. So
So
okay, it'd be a couple years too if it's up
no,
to
no,
them.
no. It's quick. So the beauty of crowdfunding is it's not like a 1A.
Okay.
Um, the the process to um, file a Form C, which is again the crowdfunding offering. It's a lot simpler than a 1A or like a Reg D offering. Um, so it typically gets approved within a few days, and then you could be live.
Okay. So you're building this out. Like, what are the next milestones? So the launch has to happen. So what is needed to fully launch, and then what are some of the next milestones you're looking forward to?
Yeah. So in terms of the launch, we've been ready to launch since December 1st.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we're waiting on our banking partner. We use a company called Prime Trust. They're like the biggest player in the space. They also facilitate Republican Start Engine's backend, the escrow service for Republican Start Engine. And they had to apply for a new trust license in New York. I think it's the trust license. New York has different banking laws than the rest of the country. Um, so our first offering is based in New York. So we're kind of held up until Prime Trust actually secures the license. That's the one thing holding us up right now. It should be done in a matter of weeks, hopefully.
Okay.
Um, and then after that, our first milestone is getting this first race off the ground and really crushing it. So we want to blow $5,000 out of the water. That's our goal. And then promote the other startups that we're going to have on the platform afterwards.
Got it. So the minimum raise is about 5K, right? What would be the cost of capital for a startup? Like, at what point does it not make sense to do crowdfunding versus like, all right, this is a good number to start thinking.
Yeah, so or we're actually not taking for this first raise just because it's our first one, but we take an 8% mixed fee. But let's say so it's like 4% of the cash you raise and 4% of the security you're selling. Um, but again, 5,000 is the minimum they could raise, right? So anything above 5,000, and these companies are looking to raise over 5,000. That's just kind of like the minimum.
Yeah.
Um, any, you know, the cost of capital is, that it's a small fee, and then you're selling a security that you set up um, you're making the terms, right? So it's as whatever you want it to be. So you shouldn't feel at any rate, you shouldn't feel in a position that, hey, listen, if I don't raise the $107,000, I'm in a bad position, because you're making the terms for your raise, right? And it doesn't matter how much you raise. It's again, it's a percentage based fee. So it's up to you. But again, you want to structure your deal so if you raise 15,000 instead of the 107, you're happy with that, and that's up to you. And it's everything's percentage based, so it's really there's no problem there.
Cool. So for people, college students, like what's a good place for them to go to learn more about you, connect with you, and maybe do a deal with you?
They could check out my site equityportal.com, reach out to us. There's a raise tab, and they could sign the form there, and we'll get their information and we'll start talking to them. But yeah, no, reach out to us. So we have Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Write us if you're interested. We'd love to chat.
Very cool. Now, why? A few other questions. Why would an investor want to, whether they're accredited or non-accredited, why would they consider investing in, crowdfunding and in a college startup rather than real estate or rather this investment over here? Like, why do you think that this has a unique advantage over those?
Yeah, it's a high risk, high reward investment. Um, and typically, people want to invest in your community. So think about it like friends, family, and community investing. That's what college startup investing is. Um, it's a really, really risky investment. But again, the rewards are high too if they do work out. And in terms of investing in real estate, again, this is a much riskier asset class, but sophisticated investors like to diversify. So you need a decent amount of risk on your balance sheet just to, who knows?
Hmm. So, what would be the minimum amount of investment? So let's just say, I went to this school and I want to invest in one of the, a business that came out of there. What would my minimum investment be?
Yeah. So our minimum right now for this first raise is $100.
Cool.
And that might, it's going to vary per company, but anyone can invest really.
Very cool. Very cool. So, what question should I have asked you during this interview that I maybe screwed up and didn't ask you?
I don't, I don't know. I think you pretty much covered everything.
Cool. Cool. All right.
Um, is that
Did you
it?
think of some? No. Did you think of something?
No, no, no.
Okay, got it. All right. So, one more time, what's a good place for investors or college students? What's a good place for them to connect with you and do a deal with you?
Yeah, please reach out. Equityportal.com. That's where we're at. You could reach out if your company. We have a raise tab, and you fill out that form. And if you're an investor, just sign up, make an account, and check out what we're offering. Our first launch is going to be up soon. But follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter, and see what we're up to. We also have a TikTok, so feel free to check us out on TikTok.
Very cool. All right, John. Thanks for coming on the show, Jonathan, and sharing your story, sharing some advice for myself and for other founders. I appreciate you, and best of luck, fellow deal makers in the audience. If you're looking to invest in college startups, right, through crowdfunding with a minimum $100 investment, like that's pretty cool. Anybody can invest. That's also awesome. Reach out to our guests, reach out to Jonathan, say, hey, heard you on the show, interested in doing a deal together. If you're working on a deal, looking for a deal, and you want to talk about it here on the show, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. Till then, talk to you all on the next episode. See you guys.